Welcome to Crime Unveiled Podcast. Dive deep into the mysteries that captivate us. If you appreciate this episode, please consider liking and subscribing to support us. The Amityville Case. A name synonymous with horror, with paranormal activity. But before the legends, before the books and films, there was a stark, unsettling reality. 6 lives, extinguished in the dead of night. A seemingly peaceful suburban home, transformed into a scene of unimaginable violence. Tonight, we peel back the layers of myth and sensationalism to examine the raw facts of the DeFeo murders. We begin not with ghosts, but with the people involved, their lives, and the chilling events of November 13, 1974. It's important to approach this case with a degree of detachment. The Amityville story has become so ingrained in popular culture that separating fact from fiction can be a challenge. We have to remember that, at its core, this is a tragedy, a devastating loss for a family and a community. We'll be examining the documented evidence, the official reports, and the testimonies of those involved in the investigation. Our aim is to understand the events of that night, the possible motivations, and the lasting impact on those touched by the tragedy. The house itself, 112 Ocean Avenue, became an infamous character in this story. The DeFeo family seemed, from the outside, a typical suburban family. Parents, Ronald and Louise, and their 4 children, Dawn, Allison, Mark, and John Jr. They lived in a comfortable 5-bedroom Dutch colonial house in Amityville, a seemingly quiet Long Island community. Ronald DeFeo Jr. was a successful car salesman, providing well for his family. Neighbors described them as relatively private, keeping to themselves, but not outwardly displaying any signs of significant trouble. It's the kind of facade that often masks hidden tensions and underlying issues. The events leading up to the murders remain shrouded in a certain amount of ambiguity. Reports suggest some level of dysfunction within the family. Ronald DeFeo Sr. was allegedly a volatile man, prone to fits of rage. There were whispers of domestic disputes, although nothing concrete enough to raise serious alarm within the community. These pieces of information, while fragmentary, form part of the puzzle we must piece together to understand the potential pressures building within the DeFeo household in the months and weeks leading up to the murders. It was in the early hours of November 13, 1974, that the unimaginable occurred. Ronald DeFeo Jr., known as Butch, entered Henry's Bar, a local haunt, claiming his parents had been shot. A small group went back to 112 Ocean Avenue with Butch, where they discovered the horrific truth. All 6 members of the DeFeo family were found dead in their beds, each having been shot with a .35 caliber Marlin rifle. The sheer brutality of the scene shocked the community and set in motion an investigation that would uncover a deeply disturbing narrative. The initial investigation focused on organized crime involvement, given Ronald DeFeo Sr.'s alleged connections to organized crime figures. However, this line of inquiry quickly faded as suspicion fell upon Butch DeFeo himself. His inconsistent statements, changing alibis, and apparent lack of emotion raised red flags for investigators. As the pieces began to fall into place, a more disturbing picture emerged, one that pointed towards a horrific act of familial violence. The crime scene itself was chilling. Each victim was found lying face down in their beds. The methodical nature of the killings, the use of a powerful hunting rifle, and the lack of any signs of struggle suggested a premeditated act. The positions of the bodies, the placement of the weapon, and the trajectory of the bullets. All these details became crucial pieces of evidence in the unfolding investigation. And so we begin our descent into this chilling narrative. We'll meticulously dissect the known facts, the evidence presented, and the various theories surrounding this case. We'll examine the subsequent trial, the verdict, and the enduring legacy of the Amityville murders. This is more than just a ghost story. It's a story of a family shattered, a community shaken, and a house forever marked by tragedy. Before the horrific events of November 13, 1974, Amityville was a quiet, unassuming suburb located on the south shore of Long Island. It was a place where people came to escape the hustle and bustle of New York City, a place to raise families in peace and tranquility. The DeFeo family, at least outwardly, seemed to fit right into this idyllic picture. They lived in a large, colonial-style house at 112 Ocean Avenue, a prominent address in the neighborhood. Neighbors often saw the children playing in the yard, seemingly carefree and happy. There was a sense of normalcy surrounding them, a facade of ordinary family life that concealed the darkness brewing within. Yes, from the outside, they appeared to be living the American dream. Ronald DeFeo Sr., the patriarch, worked at a nearby Buick dealership, providing for his family. His wife, Louise, dedicated herself to raising their 5 children. Ronald Jr., known as Butch, Dawn, Allison, Mark, and John. The children attended local schools, participated in community activities, and seemed to enjoy a comfortable, middle-class existence. The house itself, 112 Ocean Avenue, was a desirable property, boasting a boat slip and other amenities. It was a symbol of their success, a testament to their hard work and aspirations. It's hard to reconcile this image with the unspeakable tragedy that would soon unfold within its walls. It's truly chilling to consider the contrast between the outward appearance and the hidden reality. Neighbors recall seeing the children playing basketball in the driveway, hearing the sounds of laughter and music emanating from the house. These ordinary, everyday occurrences now seem imbued with a tragic irony, knowing what was to come. It's a stark reminder that appearances can be deceiving, and that even in the most peaceful of settings, darkness can lurk beneath the surface. It's essential for us to examine these details, to try and understand the context in which this horrifying crime took place. Absolutely. Amityville in the 1970s was a community much like many others across America. People knew their neighbors, children played freely in the streets, and there was a strong sense of community spirit. The DeFeo family, despite any internal struggles they may have been facing, were a part of this fabric. They interacted with their neighbors, attended local events, and contributed to the overall sense of normalcy. Understanding this backdrop is crucial to grasping the magnitude of the shock and disbelief that rippled through the community in the aftermath of the murders. It shattered their sense of security and raised chilling questions about the hidden lives of those around them. The DeFeo children were known in the neighborhood. Butch, the eldest, was described as sometimes troubled, but also as having a close bond with his sisters and younger brothers. Dawn, the oldest daughter, was popular and outgoing. Allison, Mark, and John were typical younger siblings, often seen playing together in the yard. These details, gleaned from interviews with neighbors and classmates, paint a picture of a seemingly ordinary family. The contrast between this image and the horrific events that transpired adds another layer of complexity to this already baffling case. It's important to remember that these were real people, with lives and relationships that extended beyond the confines of 112 Ocean Avenue. They were embedded within a community, and their lives touched the lives of many others. The ripple effect of their deaths extended far beyond their immediate family, impacting friends, neighbors, classmates, and the entire community of Amityville. By understanding the context of their lives, we can gain a deeper appreciation for the devastating consequences of this crime. The idyllic setting of Amityville only amplifies the horror of what occurred. The serenity of the neighborhood, the normalcy of the DeFeo family's outward appearance, these elements create a stark juxtaposition with the brutality of the murders. It's this very contrast that makes the Amityville case so deeply disturbing. The idyllic setting almost amplifies the horror, making it even more difficult to comprehend. This case forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that evil can exist anywhere, even in the most seemingly peaceful of places. Exactly. And that's why we're here, painstakingly piecing together the details, trying to make sense of the senseless. We owe it to the victims, to the community, and to ourselves to understand what happened in that house on that fateful night. By examining the seemingly ordinary details of their lives, we hope to shed light on the darkness that ultimately consumed them. The Amityville murders remain a chilling reminder of the fragility of life and the hidden darkness that can exist within seemingly ordinary families and communities. We left off discussing the seemingly idyllic life the DeFeo family projected to their neighbors in Amityville. Large family gatherings, holiday celebrations, Ronald DeFeo Sr. providing for his family with his Cadillac dealership. It paints a picture of suburban comfort, even prosperity. But as we delve deeper, cracks begin to appear in this facade of normalcy. Neighbors would later recall instances of shouting matches between Ronald Sr. and his eldest son, Ronald Jr., or Butch, as he was known. These weren't just typical father-son disagreements. These were reportedly intense, volatile arguments that sometimes spilled out onto the front lawn, disturbing the otherwise quiet neighborhood. It's important to piece together these fragments of information, these subtle disruptions, to understand the complex dynamics at play within the DeFeo household. You're right to highlight those seemingly minor details. Often, in cases like these, the signs are there, hidden in plain sight. The arguments you mentioned, while disturbing, might be dismissed as typical family tension. However, coupled with other emerging details, they contribute to a growing sense of unease. For example, Reports suggest that Butch DeFeo had a history of drug use and erratic behavior. He was also known to have a fascination with guns, even owning a .35 caliber Marlin rifle, the same type of weapon used in the murders. These details, while circumstantial, add another layer to the narrative, casting a shadow over the picture of domestic tranquility we initially discussed. It's like looking back at a photograph of a happy family and noticing a subtle, unsettling detail you hadn't seen before. It's that shift in perspective that's so crucial in these investigations. We begin with an image of normalcy, and then, piece by piece, we begin to see the potential for something darker lurking beneath the surface. Think about the layout of the house itself. A large, colonial-style home on Ocean Avenue. From the outside, a picture of suburban dream, but within those walls, tensions were simmering. Conflicts were escalating. The house, once a symbol of family unity, becomes almost a character in itself, a silent witness to the escalating dysfunction, which we have to consider the psychological impact of this environment on the family members, particularly on Butch. Absolutely. The house becomes a container for these escalating tensions, and as you mentioned, Butch's behavior becomes increasingly erratic. He's reportedly involved in petty thefts, minor criminal activities. There's a growing disconnect between the image he projects, the son of a successful businessman, and the reality of his life. He's described by some as troubled, by others as volatile. This growing instability, combined with the already tense atmosphere within the home, creates a volatile mix. It's like watching a pressure cooker about to explode. We know the tragic outcome, but understanding the buildup, the subtle shifts, is essential to unraveling the truth of what happened in that house on Ocean Avenue. We have to remember that this was the early 1970s. Suburbia was supposed to be a haven, a place of safety and security. The idea of such brutal violence erupting within a seemingly normal family was shocking, almost incomprehensible at the time. It shattered the illusion of safety and exposed the darker undercurrents that can exist even in the most ordinary of settings. The DeFeo case, in many ways, became a symbol of this societal disillusionment. Precisely. The case tapped into a growing sense of unease, a realization that the idyllic image of suburban life wasn't always what it seemed. It forced people to confront the possibility that darkness could lurk behind closed doors, even in their own neighborhoods, and the fact that it involved a seemingly ordinary family made it all the more disturbing. It wasn't some stranger invading their home. It was one of their own. This added another layer of complexity to the narrative, raising questions about family dynamics, mental health, and the potential for violence to erupt in unexpected places. It's important to piece together all these elements, the seemingly ordinary alongside the disturbing, to truly understand the context of this crime. The image of the DeFeo family enjoying a barbecue in their backyard just months before the murders stands in stark contrast to the horror that unfolded within those same walls. This juxtaposition highlights the deceptive nature of appearances and the importance of looking beyond the surface to uncover the truth. And that's what we're trying to do here, to peel back the layers, examine the evidence, and explore the possible explanations for this horrific crime. We're not just recounting the events. We're trying to understand the human element, the complex interplay of factors that led to that fateful night in November 1974. It's a complex and disturbing story, and one that continues to fascinate and horrify to this day. In the quiet pre-dawn hours of November 13, 1974, the seemingly peaceful facade of 112 Ocean Avenue in Amityville, Long Island, was shattered. 6 members of the DeFeo family were found dead in their beds. Parents Ronald and Louise DeFeo, along with 4 of their children, Dawn, Allison, Mark, and John Matthew, were victims of this horrific act. All were discovered lying face down, a detail that would later contribute to the chilling narrative surrounding the case. The weapon used was a .35 caliber Marlin lever-action rifle belonging to Ronald DeFeo Jr., the eldest son, who was 23 at the time. This horrifying discovery would mark the beginning of a complex and disturbing investigation, a story that would continue to fascinate and horrify in equal measure for decades to come. The sheer brutality of the crime scene, coupled with the seemingly inexplicable nature of the murders, immediately gripped the nation's attention. The initial response from law enforcement was swift and comprehensive. Suffolk County Police secured the scene, meticulously documenting the positions of the bodies, the collected shell casings, and any other potential evidence within the house. The investigation quickly centered on Ronald DeFeo Jr., who had called the police himself, claiming to have found his family murdered upon returning home from work. His account, however, began to unravel under scrutiny. Inconsistencies in his narrative, coupled with his erratic behavior at the scene, raised red flags for the investigators. The timeline he presented didn't align with the estimated time of death determined by the medical examiner. Furthermore, the lack of forced entry suggested the perpetrator was someone familiar with the family and the layout of the home. These initial observations pointed towards a deeply disturbing possibility that the killer was one of their own. One of the most puzzling aspects of the crime scene was the lack of struggle. The victims were all found in their beds, suggesting they had been killed in their sleep. However, the power of the .35 caliber rifle would have created significant recoil and noise. It seemed improbable that no one would have awakened, especially given the close proximity of the bedrooms. This absence of defensive wounds, or signs of a struggle, raised questions about how the perpetrator managed to execute the murders with such apparent ease. It added another layer of mystery to an already baffling case, prompting investigators to explore the possibility of a silencer being used, despite no such device being recovered. The investigation began to delve into the family dynamics within the DeFeo household. Reports emerged of a troubled history, including accounts of domestic disputes, and Ronald DeFeo Jr.'s documented history of erratic behavior and drug use. He had a complex and often volatile relationship with his father, a prominent figure in the local community. These details painted a picture of a strained family environment, possibly providing a potential motive for the killings. While a definitive motive was never explicitly established, the turbulent family history offered a framework for understanding the potential underlying tensions that might have culminated in such violence. The investigation focused on gathering statements from friends, neighbors, and extended family members to piece together a comprehensive picture of the DeFeo family and the events leading up to the murders. The physical evidence collected at the scene played a crucial role in the investigation. Ballistics analysis confirmed that the bullets recovered from the victims matched the .35 caliber Marlin rifle owned by Ronald DeFeo Jr. Additionally, traces of gunshot residue were found on his clothing, further solidifying his connection to the murders. While DeFeo Jr. maintained his innocence, claiming he had been out of the house at the time of the killings, the mounting evidence against him began to paint a different picture. The meticulous documentation of the crime scene, coupled with the forensic analysis, provided a compelling narrative that contradicted his claims. The interrogation of Ronald DeFeo Jr. provided a wealth of information, albeit contradictory and often rambling. His initial alibi quickly fell apart under questioning. He changed his story multiple times, offering conflicting accounts of his whereabouts on the night of the murders. His erratic behavior during the interrogation, coupled with the inconsistencies in his narrative, further eroded his credibility. While he never confessed outright, the cumulative weight of the evidence, combined with his shifting narratives, pointed overwhelmingly towards his involvement in the crime. As the investigation progressed, a chilling picture began to emerge of a troubled young man driven to unspeakable acts of violence against his own family. While the exact sequence of events that unfolded within the walls of 112 Ocean Avenue on that fateful night may never be fully known, the evidence pointed to a calculated and brutal crime. The lack of a clear and definitive motive only added to the unsettling nature of the case. The seemingly ordinary suburban home had become the scene of an unimaginable tragedy, leaving a lingering sense of horror and disbelief in its wake. The Amityville Murders became a media sensation, captivating the nation and sparking widespread speculation. The sheer brutality of the crime, the unsettling details of the crime scene, and the subsequent claims of paranormal activity within the house all contributed to its notoriety. The case remains a subject of fascination and debate to this day, serving as a grim reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary lives. It continues to be analyzed and discussed, prompting ongoing reflection on the complexities of human behavior and the enduring mysteries that surround certain criminal cases. The night of the murders, a chilling stillness settled over Amityville. Police arrived to a scene of unimaginable horror. 6 members of the DeFeo family found lifeless in their beds. The sheer brutality of the act, coupled with the methodical nature of the killings, pointed to a deeply disturbed mind. Neighbors reported hearing no gunshots, which initially perplexed investigators. Later, it was determined that a Marlin 336C lever-action rifle had been used, a weapon known for its powerful report, further deepening the unsettling quiet that surrounded the event. The house, once a symbol of suburban comfort, now stood as a chilling testament to a broken family and a violent intrusion. The image of the sprawling Dutch colonial house, lights extinguished, against the backdrop of a starless night, became etched in the public's consciousness. The immediate aftermath was a whirlwind of activity. Police secured the crime scene, Meticulously gathering evidence, detectives began the arduous task of piecing together the timeline of events leading up to the horrific discovery. Early reports painted a picture of a seemingly normal family. Neighbors described the DeFeos as quiet, keeping to themselves, but not exhibiting any outwardly alarming behavior. However, as the investigation progressed, a darker narrative began to emerge. Ronald DeFeo Jr., the eldest son, quickly became the prime suspect. His erratic behavior at the scene and conflicting accounts of the night raised red flags. The community, reeling from the shock, grappled with the realization that such a brutal crime could occur in their seemingly idyllic neighborhood. The initial disbelief quickly morphed into fear as the realization dawned that a killer had walked among them. The discovery of the murders sent shockwaves through the close-knit community of Amityville. The seemingly tranquil suburban landscape was shattered by an act of unspeakable violence. Neighbors who had previously exchanged pleasantries with the DeFeo family now looked at each other with suspicion and fear. The idea that such a horrific crime could happen in their midst eroded their sense of security. The once familiar streets now felt ominous. Every shadow seemed to hold a sinister potential. The idyllic image of Amityville was irrevocably tarnished, replaced by the haunting specter of the murders. Fear began to permeate the community like a chilling fog. The unknown details surrounding the murders fueled speculation and anxiety. Rumors spread like wildfire, distorting facts and amplifying the sense of dread. Every creak of a floorboard, every rustle of leaves outside a window became a potential threat. Parents kept a closer watch on their children, double-checking locks and windows, their peace of mind shattered. The murders had exposed a vulnerability, a crack in the facade of suburban safety. The once quiet streets of Amityville became haunted by the unanswered questions surrounding the DeFeo family's tragic end. The media descended upon Amityville, eager to report on the gruesome details of the case. The house at 112 Ocean Avenue became a macabre focal point, its image plastered across newspapers and television screens. Reporters interviewed neighbors, seeking any scrap of information that could shed light on the tragedy. The constant media presence only served to amplify the community's unease. The intense scrutiny transformed Amityville from a quiet suburb into a stage for a national tragedy, further disrupting the lives of those who lived there. The media coverage, while necessary for informing the public, also contributed to the growing sense of fear. The sensationalized headlines and graphic descriptions of the crime scene heightened the community's anxiety. The constant reminders of the tragedy prevented the residents from processing their grief and beginning to heal. The media's portrayal of Amityville as a town gripped by fear further solidified this image in the public consciousness, inadvertently contributing to the town's growing notoriety. The line between factual reporting and sensationalism became blurred, further complicating the community's attempts to grapple with the tragedy. In the days following the murders, a palpable sense of unease lingered in the air. The community was united in grief and disbelief, struggling to comprehend the horrific events that had unfolded in their midst. The image of the DeFeo family, frozen in time, became a haunting reminder of the fragility of life and the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary lives. The murders served as a stark reminder that even in the most peaceful of settings, evil can find a way to intrude. The Amityville murders became a chilling reminder of the vulnerability that exists within seemingly secure communities. The tragedy exposed the illusion of safety that many suburban residents clung to. The horrific events at 112 Ocean Avenue left an indelible mark on the town of Amityville, forever changing its perception in the public eye. The story continues to resonate, serving as a cautionary tale about the hidden dangers that can lurk beneath the surface of everyday life. Let's delve deeper into the psychological profile of Ronald DeFeo Jr., the perpetrator of the Amityville murders. On the surface, he appeared to be a typical young man from a seemingly ordinary family. He was described by some as charismatic, even charming at times. He held a steady job at his grandfather's Buick dealership, indicating a level of stability and responsibility. However, beneath this veneer of normalcy, a darker, more troubled personality was simmering. Reports suggest a history of drug use, escalating conflicts with his parents, and a growing sense of resentment towards his family. These underlying tensions paint a more complex picture, hinting at a possible buildup of rage that might have culminated in the horrific events of November 13, 1974. You're right to highlight the apparent contradictions in DeFeo's outward persona. While he maintained a semblance of stability in some areas of his life, his behavior was often erratic and unpredictable. Witnesses recall instances of aggressive outbursts, impulsive actions, and a general disregard for authority. He was also known to have a fascination with guns and a morbid curiosity about death. This duality, the contrast between the seemingly normal exterior and the turbulent inner world, is a crucial element in understanding the potential motivations behind the murders. It suggests a deep-seated conflict within DeFeo himself, a struggle that may have contributed to the tragic outcome. The documented history of family conflict adds another layer to this complex psychological puzzle. The relationship between Ronald DeFeo Jr. and his father, Ronald DeFeo Sr., was reportedly strained, marked by frequent arguments and physical altercations. This volatile dynamic within the family could have created a pressure cooker environment, fostering resentment and potentially contributing to DeFeo Jr.'s psychological instability. While it's impossible to definitively pinpoint the exact trigger, the ongoing family tensions undoubtedly played a significant role in shaping DeFeo Jr.'s mental state. It's important to consider the potential influence of substance abuse on DeFeo Jr.'s behavior and mental state. Reports suggest he was using heroin and LSD in the months leading up to the murders. These substances can exacerbate pre-existing psychological issues, potentially amplifying feelings of paranoia, aggression, and detachment from reality. While we can't definitively say that drug use directly caused the murders, it's a critical factor to consider when examining the totality of the circumstances and attempting to reconstruct DeFeo Jr.'s state of mind. The sheer brutality of the murders, the systematic execution of his entire family, speaks volumes about the profound psychological disturbance at play. The methodical nature of the killings suggests a level of premeditation that is chilling. This wasn't a crime of passion. It was a calculated act of violence. This further reinforces the notion that DeFeo Jr.'s outward demeanor masked a much darker internal reality, one capable of unimaginable cruelty. Another crucial element to examine is DeFeo Jr.'s behavior immediately following the murders. He went to work as usual, feigning distress over his family's disappearance. This calculated performance suggests an attempt to maintain a facade of normalcy, further highlighting the disconnect between his outward persona and the horrific act he had committed. This ability to compartmentalize and manipulate his emotions adds another dimension to the psychological portrait we are constructing. DeFeo's subsequent changing narratives and claims of demonic possession further complicate the psychological analysis. While these claims might be interpreted as attempts to evade responsibility, they could also be indicative of a fractured psyche, a desperate attempt to rationalize the unthinkable. These conflicting accounts add another layer of ambiguity to an already perplexing case, making it even more challenging to discern the truth behind the murders. Exactly. It's a complex and multifaceted case. While we can examine the available evidence and explore various psychological theories, we must acknowledge the limitations of our understanding. We can never fully know what was going on inside Ronald DeFeo Jr.'s mind on that fateful night. The Amityville murders remain a chilling reminder of the dark depths of human psychology and the complexities of understanding violent behavior. Let's delve into the investigative process following the DeFeo murders. The initial response was swift, with Suffolk County Police descending upon the High Hopes Drive residence. The scene, as we've discussed, was gruesome. One of the first challenges investigators faced was the sheer brutality of the crime, juxtaposed with the seemingly peaceful sleeping postures of the victims. This raised immediate questions about the how and why. The use of a .35 caliber Marlin rifle, found at the scene and belonging to Ronald DeFeo Jr., quickly pointed towards him as a suspect. However, the apparent lack of struggle from the victims and the speed at which the murders were executed were puzzling. The investigation needed to piece together the timeline meticulously and search for any missed clues that might shed light on these anomalies. Absolutely. And one of the initial roadblocks encountered by the investigators was the lack of a clear motive. While Ronald DeFeo Jr.'s history of erratic behavior and drug use offered some explanation, it didn't fully account for the calculated nature of the murders. There were no signs of forced entry, no evidence of a struggle, and no immediate indications of theft. This absence of a traditional motive led investigators down several paths. They explored potential connections to organized crime, examined Ronald DeFeo Jr.'s financial records, and interviewed friends, family, and associates to understand the dynamics within the DeFeo household. The investigators also scrutinized the possibility of an accomplice, questioning whether someone else could have been present during the murders. These initial leads, while ultimately proving fruitless, were crucial to establishing a comprehensive understanding of the case. The investigation also faced challenges in the form of what appeared to be taunting communications. Shortly after the murders, strange phone calls began to plague the Amityville Police Department. The caller would remain silent, breathing heavily into the receiver, or would whisper unintelligible words before hanging up. While these calls were initially dismissed as pranks, Their persistence and timing in relation to the murders led some investigators to believe they could be connected to the case. Tracing these calls proved difficult with the technology available at the time, adding another layer of mystery to the investigation. These unsettling calls, whether connected or not, certainly amplified the sense of unease surrounding the case. And amidst this unsettling atmosphere, there were moments of what seemed like false hope for a breakthrough. One such instance involved a potential witness, a neighbor who claimed to have seen lights flickering in the DeFeo house in the early hours of the morning of the murders. This testimony, while initially promising, ultimately proved unreliable due to inconsistencies in the timeline and the witness's own admitted struggles with substance abuse. Such moments of seeming progress followed by disappointment were a recurring theme throughout the investigation, further frustrating the efforts to uncover the full truth behind the Amityville horrors. We also need to consider the impact of the media coverage on the investigation. The sensational nature of the crime immediately captivated public attention, leading to a deluge of media reports, speculation, and ultimately, public pressure on the police to find answers quickly. While this public interest can be helpful in bringing forward witnesses, it can also contaminate the investigative process, leading to misinformation, false leads, and undue pressure on investigators. In the Amityville case, the media frenzy undoubtedly contributed to the sense of urgency and perhaps even influenced the direction of the investigation at certain points. One specific aspect often overlooked is the psychological impact of such a crime on the investigators themselves. Facing a crime scene as horrific as the DeFeo murders can take a toll on even the most seasoned law enforcement officers. The psychological pressure to solve the case, coupled with the disturbing nature of the evidence, creates an environment ripe for both tunnel vision and burnout. It's crucial to remember that the individuals investigating these cases are human beings, susceptible to the same emotional responses as anyone else. And in a case as emotionally charged as the Amityville murders, this human factor played a significant role. The limited forensic technology available at the time also posed a considerable hurdle. While investigators could analyze ballistic evidence and collect fingerprints, the sophisticated DNA analysis and other forensic techniques we rely on today were not yet available. This technological limitation meant that investigators had to rely heavily on traditional investigative methods, such as witness interviews, physical evidence collection, and crime scene reconstruction. The absence of advanced forensic tools undoubtedly made the task of definitively linking all pieces of evidence to Ronald DeFeo Jr. more challenging. And finally, the investigation had to grapple with the growing public fascination with the occult. Fueled by rumors of paranormal activity in the DeFeo house, speculation about demonic influences began to circulate. While these theories were largely dismissed by law enforcement, they added another layer of complexity to an already perplexing case. The challenge for investigators was to remain focused on the factual evidence, while acknowledging and addressing the public's growing interest in the supernatural explanations surrounding the Amityville murders. This intersection of factual investigation and public fascination with the paranormal is a key element that sets this case apart. The Amityville murders, beyond the horrific act itself, left an enduring scar on the community. The DeFeo family was well regarded, active members of the local parish and social circles. Their sudden, violent deaths shattered the sense of security in Amityville. Neighbors who had known the family for years were left grappling with the unimaginable. Imagine the whispers, the sidelong glances, the constant reminders of the tragedy in every corner of their lives. This case wasn't just a news story. It was a deeply personal trauma for many. The ripple effect of such violence extends far beyond the immediate family, creating a sense of collective grief and anxiety that can linger for generations. Absolutely. The emotional toll on the community cannot be understated. Imagine the children who played with the younger DeFeo children, now forced to confront the brutal reality of their deaths. The impact on their developing minds, their sense of safety and trust, is immeasurable. And for the adults, the fear and uncertainty that followed were palpable. People began questioning the safety of their own homes, their own families. The idyllic image of suburban life was irrevocably tarnished. The Amityville murders served as a stark reminder that even in seemingly peaceful communities, darkness can lurk beneath the surface, shattering lives and leaving an enduring legacy of fear and unease. Beyond the immediate aftermath, the long-term psychological effects on the extended family are also profound. The surviving relatives not only mourned the loss of their loved ones, but also had to contend with the public scrutiny and the relentless media attention that followed. They were forced to relive the trauma over and over again, each time the case was revisited in books, films, and documentaries. This constant reopening of the wounds can impede the healing process and create a chronic sense of unease and vulnerability. The weight of such a tragedy can become an intergenerational burden, affecting family dynamics and relationships for years to come. The case also highlighted the challenges faced by first responders and law enforcement. Police officers, paramedics, and other personnel who arrived at the scene were confronted with a horrific sight, one that can leave lasting psychological scars. They witnessed the brutal aftermath of violence, the shattered lives, and the palpable grief. Such experiences can lead to post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, and depression. While these individuals are trained to handle difficult situations, the sheer magnitude of the Amityville murders undoubtedly took a toll on their mental and emotional well-being. Their silent suffering often goes unnoticed, but it's a crucial part of the story. The Amityville murders also raised questions about the support systems available to victims' families and communities in the aftermath of such tragedies. In the 1970s, resources for dealing with trauma and grief were far less developed than they are today. Families were often left to navigate their pain and loss with limited professional help. This lack of adequate support could exacerbate the emotional toll and prolong the healing process. The case served as a grim reminder of the need for better mental health services and community support systems for those affected by violence and trauma. And then there's the lingering impact on the property itself. 112 Ocean Avenue became synonymous with horror and tragedy. The subsequent stories about paranormal activity, regardless of their veracity, further cemented the house's reputation as a place of fear and unease. This created a unique challenge for future residents, who had to contend not only with the history of the house, but also with the public's morbid fascination with it. The Amityville murders transformed a family home into a symbol of tragedy, forever etched in the public consciousness. The story of the Amityville murders reminds us that true crime is not just about the facts and figures of a case. It's about the human impact, the emotional devastation that ripples outwards from the epicenter of the crime. It's about the shattered lives, the enduring trauma, and the lingering sense of unease that can grip a community for decades. Understanding this human cost is crucial to truly grasping the profound impact of crimes like the Amityville murders. Precisely. We must remember that behind every headline, every police report, there are real people whose lives have been irrevocably altered. The Amityville murders serve as a sobering reminder of the fragility of life and the enduring power of trauma. It's a story that continues to resonate, not just for its horrific nature, but also for the profound emotional impact it had on individuals, families, and the community as a whole. The seemingly airtight alibi of Ronald DeFeo Jr., claiming he was at work during the murders, began to crumble under the weight of meticulous investigation. Detectives meticulously pieced together the timeline, discovering inconsistencies in his statements and gaps in his supposed whereabouts. Witness testimonies from his co-workers placed him leaving work earlier than he claimed, providing a window of opportunity for him to drive back to Amityville, commit the murders, and return to work before being noticed. This discrepancy, although seemingly minor, became a pivotal crack in his fabricated narrative. The investigators' relentless pursuit of truth started to yield results, slowly tightening the net around the prime suspect. Concurrent with the timeline investigation, the physical evidence began to speak volumes. The high-powered Marlin rifle, the murder weapon, was found in the house, registered in Ronald DeFeo Jr.'s name. While initially claiming ignorance about the weapon, his changing story and contradictory statements further cast suspicion upon him. The ballistic analysis of the recovered bullets definitively linked the rifle to the victims, leaving little doubt about the weapon used. This crucial piece of evidence, combined with the unraveling alibi, significantly shifted the focus of the investigation, making Ronald DeFeo Jr. the primary person of interest. The weight of the evidence was steadily mounting against him. Perhaps the most chilling breakthrough came during the interrogation. After hours of questioning, inconsistencies in his narrative, and the mounting evidence against him, DeFeo Jr. began to crack. His initial calm demeanor began to unravel, replaced by nervousness and agitation. Detectives meticulously documented these shifts in his behavior, observing every subtle change in his body language and tone of voice. These observations, combined with the hard evidence, painted a picture of a suspect beginning to crumble under the pressure. Under the relentless pressure of the interrogation, DeFeo Jr.'s carefully constructed facade finally shattered. He offered a series of increasingly bizarre and contradictory explanations, further deepening the suspicion of the investigators. His story shifted dramatically, from claiming complete ignorance to vague admissions of involvement, creating a tangled web of lies that ultimately trapped him. These conflicting accounts, recorded meticulously by the detectives, became vital pieces of the puzzle, exposing the true nature of the suspect. The turning point came when DeFeo Jr. unexpectedly confessed to the murders, albeit with a peculiar narrative. He claimed that voices he heard in the house compelled him to commit the horrific act. This confession, while shocking, provided the long-awaited breakthrough in the case. Despite the strange nature of the confession, it finally placed DeFeo Jr. directly at the scene of the crime, admitting to the act itself. The legal ramifications of this confession were significant, shifting the investigation from building a case to understanding the motive and the suspect's state of mind. Despite the suspect's claim of being influenced by voices, investigators remained focused on the concrete evidence. The physical evidence, witness testimonies, and DeFeo Jr.'s own contradictory statements painted a clear picture of his guilt. The voice's claim, while considered, was ultimately viewed as a desperate attempt to mitigate his culpability. The prosecution was prepared to argue that, regardless of any alleged auditory hallucinations, the premeditated nature of the crime, evidenced by the systematic execution of the family members, pointed to a calculated and deliberate act. On the basis of the confession, coupled with the overwhelming physical and circumstantial evidence, Ronald DeFeo Jr. was formally arrested and charged with 6 counts of second-degree murder. The arrest, though expected, brought a sense of closure to the intense investigation. It marked a critical turning point in the case, shifting the focus from the search for the perpetrator to the pursuit of justice for the victims. The community, shrouded in fear and uncertainty, could finally begin to breathe a sigh of relief. The arrest of Ronald DeFeo Jr. did not mark the end of the story, but rather the beginning of a new chapter. The upcoming trial would delve into the intricacies of the case, examining the evidence, exploring the suspect's claims, and ultimately determining the fate of the accused. The Amityville Murders, initially a horrific mystery, were now on the path to becoming a landmark legal case, one that would captivate the nation and further fuel the already swirling rumors and speculation surrounding the house itself. The trial promised to be a complex and chilling exploration of a profoundly disturbing crime. It's unsettling, isn't it, to consider that such darkness can reside within seemingly ordinary settings. The Amityville house, with its Dutch colonial architecture and waterfront location, presented an image of idyllic suburban life. Yet, beneath that facade, a horrific crime had taken place, leaving an enduring stain on the property and in the public consciousness. The DeFeo family, seemingly an average American family, became entangled in a tragedy that continues to generate questions and debate decades later. The sheer brutality of the murders, coupled with the subsequent paranormal claims, has solidified Amityville's place in the annals of true crime and the unexplained. It forces us to confront the chilling reality that evil can lurk anywhere, even in the most unexpected places. Absolutely. And the lingering question of motive adds another layer of complexity to the case. While Ronald DeFeo Jr. confessed to the murders, his claims of demonic influence and hearing voices have been met with both skepticism and intrigue. Was it a premeditated act driven by internal conflicts and familial tensions? Or was there something more sinister at play? Exploring the psychological profile of Ronald DeFeo Jr., his troubled past, and his behavior leading up to the murders is crucial to understanding the potential driving forces behind the tragedy. The ambiguity surrounding his true motivations continues to fuel speculation and adds to the mystique surrounding the Amityville case. It underscores the difficulty in truly comprehending the depths of human darkness. The timeline of the events is also a key piece of the puzzle. The methodical nature of the killings, with each family member shot while sleeping, suggests a premeditated act. However, the lack of forced entry and the seemingly calm demeanor of Ronald DeFeo Jr. in the hours following the murders raise questions. Reconstructing the sequence of events that night, from the moment Ronald DeFeo Jr. obtained the rifle to his subsequent actions and alibis, is crucial to gaining a clearer understanding of how the tragedy unfolded. These details, though grim, are essential in piecing together a comprehensive narrative of the crime. And let's not forget the aftermath, the paranormal claims that followed the murders. While the Lutz family's experiences have been largely discredited as a hoax, they nonetheless contributed to the enduring legend of the Amityville house. The stories of levitation, demonic voices, and unexplained phenomena captured the public imagination and further cemented the house's reputation as a place of profound darkness. While separating fact from fiction in this case is challenging, it's important to examine these claims within the broader context of the case and consider how they have shaped public perception. The witness accounts also paint a complex picture. Neighbors reported hearing gunshots, but none contacted the police. This inaction, coupled with the delayed discovery of the bodies, raises questions about the community's response and the subtle ways in which such horrors can go unnoticed. Analyzing the statements and testimonies of those who knew the DeFeo family, as well as the first responders on the scene, provides valuable insights into the social dynamics and the atmosphere surrounding the family in the time leading up to the murders. Ultimately, the Amityville murders remain a chilling reminder of the complexities of human behavior and the potential for darkness to reside in seemingly ordinary lives. The case continues to fascinate and horrify, leaving us with more questions than answers. It's a story that forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that evil can be hidden in plain sight, masked by the facade of normalcy. The evidence collected at the crime scene, including the murder weapon, ballistic reports, and the positioning of the bodies, offers crucial physical evidence. Analyzing these details in conjunction with the witness testimonies and Ronald DeFeo Jr.'s confession helps us piece together a more complete understanding of the sequence of events and the nature of the crime. However, despite this evidence, certain aspects of the case remain shrouded in mystery, and that's precisely the unsettling aspect of the Amityville case. Despite the wealth of information available, despite the investigations and analyses, a sense of unease persists. The true depths of the darkness that descended upon that house on that fateful night may never be fully known. And that, perhaps, is the most chilling thought of all. It leaves us with a lingering question. What truly happened within the walls of the Amityville house? We may never have definitive answers, but the enduring legacy of the Amityville murders serves as a stark reminder of the complexities of human behavior and the potential for unspeakable acts to occur within seemingly ordinary settings. It's a case that continues to captivate and disturb, prompting us to question the nature of evil and its presence in our world. Indeed, it's a case that continues to resonate, reminding us that the veneer of normalcy can sometimes conceal the darkest of secrets. And that, perhaps, is the most enduring and disturbing legacy of the Amityville horror. Thank you for walking with us through the shadows. The story doesn't end here. It lingers, echoing through time, reminding us that the darkest truths often hide in plain sight. Until next time, stay curious and stay vigilant. Goodbye.